what is an array? An array is pretty much a data structure in code used to store multiple types of the same value, and arrays have a defined length. So if we create an array like so you do string, to make an array of strings, you do string, brackets to signify it's an array, enter a variable name, and then do new string with brackets to signify that it's a newly created array, not an array that already exists, and give it a value of 5 in there. That creates an array called words that has 5 spots in it. So 5 spots for values. However, arrays are typically, and in C# in this case, are base 0, which means to access the first value in an array, you'd look for words, or to set it, or to access it, you do word 0 is equal to test. So now, if we try to print, if we do console.writeLine, words at 0, save and run it, you will get test to print to the screen. It is the first value in the array, but it is at index or spot 0, because arrays typically start with a base of 0. So this array, you have a slot 0, 1, 2, 3, and 4. If you try to do something like words at 5 is equal to double test, what will happen is when you try to run this code, and I'll run it, it will fail and give an index outside of the bounds of the array error. What that is basically saying is you are trying to create a value or set a value for a spot that does not exist in the array. So another cool thing about arrays is you can get a length of any array whenever. So you can do if you do console.writeLine, words.length, what this will do is it will print, well, it should print, since our array is the length of 5, it should print the number 5 after printing the value of words at spot 0. So run that again, and it prints out test, which is the spot at 0, and then it prints out 5, which is the length of the array. Another cool thing with arrays is that they can you can have pretty much any value as an array. So you can do you can make int arrays, so int numbers is equal to new int, we can say 8. You can do a bool array. So basically any data type that you have, you can make an array. And so you can store multiple values of these. Now, the cool thing about this is what you can do is using something simple like a for loop. So you can do for int I is equal to 0. I is less than numbers dot length, less than, so that it'll never actually get to that value. So you'll always have an extra spot in the array. And then increment the value of I each time. And what you can do is you can set numbers at the spot of I, so at whatever index it is cycling through, you can set that value equal to the value of Y. And then what I'm going to do is I'm going to do the same, copy and paste the loop, and instead of doing that, just do a console.writeLine, numbers at the value of I. So what this does is you create the array here. So you create the array, the int data type array with 8 spots in it. So that's values 0, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, since it's base 0. And then what it does is it sets, so it goes through and it goes, okay, for the array at spot 0, set that equal to 0. And then at 1 equal to 1, 2 equal to 2, etc., etc. And then what this does is using that length of the array as your max value of how many times it can loop through once, it writes out each value in there. So what this will do is, since you're doing less than numbers.length, it will never hit value, like I will never be equal to 8, which means it will always be within the bounds of the array, meaning your program will run. So if we look at if we save and then look, it should print out first the string array with that, then the length of the string array, and then all of the values within the int array looping through. And you can also do it for individual values. So you can do, just to clear some space, then you can do console.writeLine. You could do numbers at 4, then console.writeLine numbers at 3, and so on and so forth. And you will print whatever value is held in the array at that spot. So in terms of games, it's very useful to store your, like, say you have an array of enemies. You have 5 enemies on the screen. You can put those 5 enemies in an array and then loop through them using one of these, using a for loop like this, to make them, say, move or attack or something like that. So arrays are a very basic data structure. They're very useful. Their one limit is that you do have to predefine the length of the array, but they're incredibly useful for organizing your code, organizing your enemies, and being able to loop through an array and have everything in the array do a certain thing over and over again without having to manually type out each number value or each individual object to do the thing.